Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we have a very interesting video that I thought would kind of come up at some point. Apparently a Kotor TV series set in the Old Republic, obviously, is in development for Disney Plus. I am not super excited about this. I'm more concerned than anything, and I know there's a lot of people who are gonna be, you know, just completely stoked over this idea and this concept. But I'm here to tell you that I don't think I trust them with any of this material whatsoever. Like just right off the bat, before even reading anything, I don't trust them with this. They literally have to adapt the game exactly with the exact same script and everything. But obviously, they're not doing that because they're doing the KOTOR remake, which will probably become canon. And they can't do that. So now it's like a totally different thing set in this era. And I don't trust them with those characters at all. Because as we've seen, all they ever do with returning characters is destroy them completely. And the only reason Anakin wasn't was because that show was helmed by Dave Filoni, but that's not why, really. It's Dave Filoni's work on Clone Wars and George's, I guess, messages and themes that he gave to Dave about Anakin over the years that really made that work, because Dave was forced to fundamentally understand that character by George, and he worked on that character a lot through Clone Wars, so it turned out well. And that's how most things should go. Don't just get someone random to do something on a character that's really important to people. And that's an unfortunate reality we have, is we have all these like just random people get to use Darth Vader. It's like you don't know how to use Darth Vader, like Deborah Chow didn't know how to use Darth Vader, and it's like you can't just give that character to them or give Leslie Headland Yoda and Plagueis. Like, she doesn't understand Star Wars one bit, So with that said, like who are they going to give this to? Who? Dave Filoni doesn't know crap about the Old Republic. He didn't work on it. I mean, he might have maybe studied it at some point, but he wasn't involved with that at all. Jon Favreau wasn't involved with this at all. Like no one there was involved with this game. It was George and everyone in his writing room. But everyone in his writing room is now gone. Other than Dave, but I don't think Dave really was part of, the whole crew. He's just part of the Clone Wars crew. So I don't know, man. Like, who to really, I don't know who would really do this right, other than the original writers of KOTOR or SWTOR, Star Wars The Old Republic, the MMORPG. They potentially, they could do a good job with it because they did an amazing job with it, obviously, back in the George days. That would be the only thing for me to really sit back and just be excited about this, is if they got the original writers from the games to do this, and maybe they had needed a lot of guidance from George, in which in that case, we're just going to have to see if they can pull it off. But I really feel that they did a great job writing those games. It's just a matter of how well will this turn out, because it's a little scary. I'm going to be honest, like I don't, other than Anakin and Ahsoka, what other character that's appeared in a Disney Star Wars product that George made has been treated well from the get-go? None. Luke was just destroyed the worst, I'd say, out of all of them in Last Jedi. Then they finally figured out, we don't want that, and they brought real Luke back in Mando and in Boba Fett. There are some little things in Boba Fett that were weird, but for the most part, well done. Um, you know, like there isn't any other than Anakin and Ahsoka. There is none that they have brought back that have been flawless from the get go. Like really, there isn't. And Clone Wars final season with Maul doesn't count because those were George's stories and concepts that he approved. Then Disney just cherry picked away and decided to take credit for all his work. That's basically what that was. It was him and Dave's work, and then Disney just reanimated it in modern graphics. That's all that is. So that does not count. Maul was in Solo for 5 seconds, so we never really got his, you know, full, I guess, look at his character in Disney Star Wars. We haven't. That was just such a brief cameo. I don't think that counts either. Like for me to count it, like it would have to be like they spent time on the character and put them in situations that would require them to navigate out. Like that would really define it for me. It's just like get the original writers, especially for this EU stuff, and call George. I mean, surely George will take a few phone calls in order to make his franchise okay. Like, certainly. Like, if you really are stuck on something, which we know would be really obvious, if they're too stupid to figure it out, just call George. Like, how hard can it be? And if he's too busy, then go do the research yourself and figure it out. Because if I can with just books and the internet, you can with the Lucasfilm archives. That's kind of common sense. Anyways, let's actually go through this article and get details, and then we'll continue to talk about it. But I, for the 100th time, really don't trust them with any of these characters. Maybe Bastila Shan, because she's a female, so they'll really try to, like, they'll make her the main character and heavily push whatever. But, other than that, like, I don't know. Like, really, Basila's the only one where I feel like they'll actually try, because it would, give them, they'd use her for their check mark of the show, and that's sad because she was a genuinely good character, and then they'll probably just overdo it on every level, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I don't trust them with anyone else, and they'll gender swap and whatever the hell, like, so just not even story, but the race and DEI stuff, that's another thing that scares me. And I'm very concerned that they're going to gender swap Revan. Because I heard at some point during the KOTOR remake that they were gender swapping characters. And Revan is masked a lot of the time. And it would not surprise me if he gets his helmet off and there's a woman under there. That would not surprise me. I would be furious. And I've said to people before, that would be my last kind of thing that would just, I'm done at that point, like I'm just not gonna watch new Star Wars anymore, period. No matter what it is, I'm just done. Because at that point, it's just like, it's so blatantly purposeful and abhorrent that they had to really think that decision through, and that just tells me a lot, so if they really did do that, I'd call it quits, like I can't sit here and I'll still cover the news and whatever, but I'm not gonna watch it, so I certainly hope they don't do that. Or maybe they toyed with it and then they realized, wait, the fans will cut our heads off if we do that. Because let's be honest, the entire fandom, other than the shills, will just absolutely spit on Lucasfilm kind of for eternity, like we are with The Last Jedi, but worse if they did that. That would be the biggest hit for their numbers they could receive with any kind of Heir with Old Republic show. Because 95% of the people who love the Old Republic, supposedly, and love Revan, don't even know the story of the Old Republic or the story of Revan. They just like it, the aesthetic of it, and that it looks cool, and that Revan looks cool. They don't even know his storyline. So half those people, if there's a plot issue, they won't care. They'll call us all toxic. Even the ones who pretend, at least, to be real fans, it's a great way to kind of figure them out when they say Ahsoka's a 10 out of 10 show and Obi-Wan is a 10 out of 10 show. It's like those kinds of like in the middle people that really just don't understand the story and haven't matured enough to accept the fact that some of these things are just straight crap, so dude, God, yeah, this is just bad, man. Like I really am really terrified for this. But yeah, so I will finally read the article now. Another year starts and another Star Wars rumor pops up on the internet. Industry insider Daniel Richman posted on his Patreon page over the weekend a few things he's been hearing regarding some of the big Hollywood franchises, including Star Wars. Via The Gamer, he claims to be hearing that a show set during the Knights of the Old Republic era is in development at Lucasfilm. This would mean a timeline removed thousands of years in the past from The Phantom Menace. This era references the 2003 beloved game by blah, 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 blah. It takes place 4,000 years before the formation of the Empire. Note, of course, that even if this is true, it doesn't imply a live-action adaptation of the storyline, just that it would be set that many years in the past. True. And probably they'd use characters from it. So how true is this really? We've known for months that Lucasfilm is developing multiple new ideas for future Disney Plus series. We, along with other reporters, heard as much in mid-2024, and Alan Bergman recently echoed it in an interview with Vulture. And since they know how beloved this time period is, and also how many creatives in Hollywood are probably passionate about it, that I don't think is true, considering a live-action series in this time period has almost surely been posted on a wall at the Lucasfilm headquarters for many years. That is probably true. The word development, after all, can pretty much mean anything. The question now becomes, will they follow through with it? With the start of the new year, Lucasfilm will surely be making some decisions on what to actually execute. They should be ready to at least order a season on one of these ideas, since they likely want a new show to start filming either later this year or top of 2026 to fill those Disney Plus pipelines. Only one show is currently in pre-production, Ahsoka Season 2, and only one is in post, Andor Season 2. At the moment, Lucasfilm is probably figuring out what to announce at Star Wars Celebration, and this is what I was actually just going to get to talking about. And something splashy like a new live-action series must be in the cards. Whether that will be one set in the Old Republic or not, it's possible they don't even know yet. Yeah, well, that's Lucasfilm's planning for you. We have this thing in 4 months where we're supposed to, announce something. Oh yeah, we haven't been figuring it out at all. We'll just kind of put it on a spinner wheel and decide, in a single day, in 24 hours, which next massive project we're going to do. Because that sounds like Disney Lucasfilm. George would have had, this next show planned out like 4 years ago, so he would have been like, oh yeah, it's 2025, we're doing this, here we go, Not these guys, not anymore. So yeah, that is a great point though. Star Wars Celebration is very soon. It is in January, February, March, April. January, February, March, April. It's in 3 months. That's even sooner than I thought. And we're hearing that Well, their Star Wars Newsnet is guessing that they don't even know what show they're gonna announce yet, which is insane. But judging by the fact we have one single Star Wars project in 2025, which is Andor season 2, in none other, and then one single film in 2026, which is Mando and Grogu, and nothing else, they are probably going to be announcing quite a bit of stuff. And I'm very excited, not in really a hyper positive way, to see what those projects are. Because it could be really stupid, like Star Wars Visions Volume 4 or something ridiculous. It could be something like huge and dangerous, like a Kotor show or an Anakin thing or whatever, or a Luke thing or who knows what else, or it could be like just something weird like Skeleton Crew. When that got announced, no one cared. But last Celebration, they had a lot coming out, so they weren't announcing a lot of shows. Really, the only new thing they announced was Skeleton Crew. But this time around, it's very different. We have nothing, pretty much. We have Andor Season 2 and we have Mando and Grogu. And if they don't really announce anything, that's great, but I have then, a lot more pressure on those projects to do well and to succeed. Who knows? Really, who knows? I don't know what the heck the deal will be. Yeah, so that's one thing that I'm more excited for the announcement than this rumor, because, it'll just be really interesting to see kind of the overall vibe of Celebration after the just kind of massacre that occurred in 2024. The massacre of Star Wars with the Acolyte, and then, I don't even remember what else came out. What, Bad Batch Season 3? I was like mid, who cares? Skeleton Crew, who cares? There was something else, some animated thing I think they did then too. But it was just the worst year for Star Wars in its whole run since 77. Really, this year, last year was just the worst year for Star Wars ever. Just in its all of its years, almost 50 years, that was the worst year ever. And I've gone through all the different years, and I'd much rather have Ewok Adventure or Droids or whatever, because that's unique, it's interesting, it's cool. Not this. This is just bad. So it's weird, man. But yeah, continuing on, we have a last little paragraph here. For now, Lucasfilm, in partnership with Saber Interactive, seemingly continues to be in development of a remake of the original game for the new generation of consoles. But since the announcement was made 3 years ago, we haven't heard many convincing reassurances that the plans are still on. The game has switched developers, and there have been plenty of rumors of it being axed completely. Will 2025 finally be the year when a significant update is provided? Who knows? Honestly. I mean, the last we heard of it was April 3rd, and Saber Interactive, the CEO, said that it's still happening. But we haven't heard anything since. We haven't even had a rumor since then. Maybe a rumor of it being axed, but it's nothing good, but yeah, that's the weird thing. Is set in the older Knights of the Old Republic era. That's so broad. It could literally be a Bastila Shan show, or some, if they really want to try to get us excited, some Darth Malik, Darth Revan show. Something said in then. You know, all of my ideas and whatever, you have to take that down 100 notches for what they'd announce. They'd be like, guys, we're going to make a show about a group of random people running around with that one droid from Knights of the Old Republic that's like the Old Republic R2-D2. That is what we're going to do. And then they expect everyone to cheer. Like that's the level we're at now. Look at Skeleton Crew. Like, what kind of, like, idea? Who's like, oh, this is what we should do with Star Wars when we have access to the Old Republic, the Clone Wars, the Galactic Civil War, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, Han Solo. This is what we're going to do. Skeleton Crew. When you think about it in that sense, it is really stupid. Like, so stupid that they chose this idea. And again, is the show bad? Not really. But would that, out of all of your ideas, be what to choose? No. Like, just no. Why? Like, there have been so many better things to be pitched to them that they have just said no to, like Colin Trevorrow's script, or, dang it, what's his name? Stuart Beattie's Obi-Wan trilogy, the Boba Fett movie that James Mangold was going to make. Like, approve those, not Skeleton Crew, and not The Acolyte, right? The Acolyte's a whole nother ballgame of, like, it shouldn't have even been pitched. Like, you just should know that that is a stupid idea from the get-go, and that will infuriate the fandom. Like, it's these simple little things, you know, that just suck. And I'm like, it's common sense. That's one of the things I just hate the most, is when people don't have common sense and they don't have common knowledge on things. And it's like, I get you don't have to know who Sleaze Bagano is, or who or Ben Quadraneros' whole backstory. You don't. I do, but you don't. Okay? Like, that's not important for you writing a Star Wars project. But what's important is that if you have existing characters in your project, you need to make sure that it's consistent, you know, and you need to really read up on the Force if the Force is present. You know, it's like all the topics in your show need to be near perfect, you know, with Star Wars, because you can knock the feel of Star Wars off so easily. And this is something I've learned as I've written stuff, and I've, you know, even as a kid, done little things here and there. You can make something super Star Wars-y looking feel not like Star Wars with one line of dialogue, or one little decision someone makes with the Force. You know, it just like pulls you right out of it. Or one character doing something a little fringy. You know, it's like, it's so easy to screw up, but it's also so easy to make if you put the time into it. You know, if you really put the time into it and you develop your story, knowing you have 6 perfect films, the best films ever made, along with 200 books, 1,000 comics, all sitting there for you to go and look at, and the countless behind-the-scenes books and interviews and movies and whatever the hell that are just shoved in the Lucasfilm archives. You have all of that at your use. You know, and when I meant 200 books, 1,000 comics, that's the number of legends out there. So when you have all of that out there, you please, just please, make something good. You have all of that information. George already did the hard work. George already established the universe and made Star Wars easy to make for us. And that's what people don't understand, is they overcomplicate Star Wars. They have to do all the Hollywood stuff. They have to do all the weird storytelling stuff. And it's like, you don't. You're missing the point. Sure, when you're making something Star Wars, it feels way the hell easier than making your own thing. Because it is so grounded and established at this point in time. And it's gonna feel easy. And if it feels easy, that is okay and that's good. Because that means you're sticking to George's philosophies more. And that's really something I feel, because like Star Wars shouldn't be this weird, like, hyper dialogue driven, super over dramatic thing. Like, when I mean super over dramatic, Star Wars is like a soap opera in its tone, but I mean, like, it is all just talking, all weird shots. It's not exciting. It's boring. It's like, oh, I have to make sure I develop this random character here and this random character there. It's like, no. You build Star Wars around the plot of your project, not character, through the plot. It's plot around the character. You know what I'm saying? It's like the plot should be the main kind of thing. We go from A to B to C to D, whatever. Obviously you have characters in your plot, but you make sure your plot's good first. You make sure it's entertaining. You make sure it's not too dark or too light. You keep it in that, like, kind of in the middle range. Same thing narratively. You don't make it too complex where people can't understand it, but you don't make it too linear to where it's shallow. Again, right in the middle. And then you kind of, from there, formulate your story, your characters, and see where they go and whatever. But it's not like Luke Skywalker had a mental whatever crisis and he's recovering from being a victim of like that is like not Star Wars. It's, you have Luke, he's bored, he's on a farm, and he wants to go explore the galaxy. Boom. Do you see how easy that was? Like, I'm not going into the character's psyche, like, no. And the whole complexity of Star Wars' story didn't come from George trying to make it complex. It just came out that way. It's like over the course of developing the story, it just got more and more complex as he went along. At first, he was just like, I'm going to make a space movie that kids can enjoy and watch and that will be entertaining. And then that led to all of this, like that one little thought led to, 6 films, I guess 7 if you include the Clone Wars movie, 7 films and, Clone Wars and all these games and books. It's like that one little thought brought all of this, and that's the thing. It's the power of the concept too. If your concept for a Star Wars thing is, you feel is really good, and in your heart you feel it's really good and you can back it up with evidence, it's gonna be good if you spend the time on it. If you take your time to make sure it's done well. And the funny thing with Star Wars is there's so much time. I'd say majority of the time is in pre-production. Production is like just another piece of the puzzle, and post-production is, again, super, super long. Because that's how Star Wars is, So if you're like, oh, I've been on my story for 3 months, you're making Star Wars, that's how it's gonna go, Obviously, for me, it's quicker because, I have indulged in Star Wars every day of my life since I was like 3. So it's pretty easy for me to make tales of my own and come up with scenarios for characters that fit and whatever, because I've done my homework already. So, I'm a couple steps ahead of the game at this point. But, with that said, there are some, people out there who, who do think they know everything about, like, filmmaking and Star Wars, and then they don't whatsoever. And it's the same kind of people I'm talking about who, like, are like, they should make this, they should do that with these characters, they should. And it's like they haven't developed the critical thinking skills of thinking like, dude, this is Disney. making these things, you know, and this is like the same people who made the sequel trilogy are making this. So maybe they shouldn't touch upon that if we already have it. We already have the whole Old Republic era. It's done, and it's over in Legends, and it's done. It's there. It's George Lucas canon. Why do you need anything else? Right? It's like those kinds of people who say they know all this stuff, and then you read one of their stories, and it's just like a bunch of legacy characters mashed together. Normally, from what I've seen, fighting some weird Old Republic Sith or fighting like the Empire or the Imperial Remnant every time. And it's like, my God, Star Wars is so big, and you're focusing on these two pieces. It's like, and when they do it, it's like the characters just, you do things and they do things and you just look at them like, what? Like some buffoon idiot online that I saw, like, said that Shin Hati, Vader would take Shin Hati as his apprentice because she's conflicted. Like, what? Like, what is that? Right? Like, it's just like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you can like that character, whatever, but don't say something like that. Because you know it's not true. It's delusion. That is what we call fan fiction. Because it's something that would never happen, that a fan makes happen through their own lens. That is fan fiction. So I have a very hard time picturing that literally. Because, again, the same thing. You know, fan film is just a fan making a movie of a... That's so weird. Fan film, honestly, is such a stupid term. I feel like it used to have prevalence, but now it's like you're just making a movie under a franchise, just like they are, on a lower budget. That's all it is, you know? And I feel like it's more people call things fan film to, like, basically claim that it's unofficial and not tied, but, like, I don't know, this whole thing with fan film. But fan fiction, my point is a totally different thing. And fan fiction is like the stuff that's normally really, really, really retarded. You know, that's the stuff that, like, people look at fan films and fan projects and call them fan fiction. And it's like, no, this is not a fan fiction. This is real Star Wars, right? Like, this is not me twisting the characters to do weird things. This is the characters doing things they would do. This is the story continued. You know, this is not some sort of, you know, weird spin on Star Wars. This is Star Wars. You know, that's how I think of things, you know. Like, I even made a weird little, you know, short film Star Wars project. You know, and this was, I was developing that script. Wow. It's insane to think about it, but 2 years ago? Holy shit, it has been so long. Yeah, like 2 years ago, I was developing that. And I had this really strong, huge story, you know, that was just felt so Star Warsy and whatever. I'm not trying to be narcissistic here. Like, my story's so great, but, like, it's thanks to George that I could do that, you know? And it's like, that's like, when I was done and I had really researched and changed things and whatever, I was like, this is more Star Wars than anything they've done. And that was another huge wake-up call for me, like, that they're just so in a different universe now. Like, Star Wars isn't even the same universe anymore, you know? Um, I had, like, it was after Jedi. I'll just share one of the scenes with you, 'cause why not? I already made it, and I'd say 1%. It's on the channel, you can find it. 1% of my vision for that project. Actually, probably 0.5%. Um, just because of budget and realistically achieving those effects and getting those characters and whatever. Obviously, I knew I couldn't do with, a $100 to $200 budget. That's not realistic, and I didn't have a lot of time. I had to, like, pretty much shoot it and edit it in a month, which is awful, but that's how my teacher's due dates are for our films, which was just so nice. But yeah, it's not perfect, and I wouldn't even say that's the bare bones. Like, that's like a different thing that came out of it, just purely because of production stuff that was just unachievable, but originally my full script that was pretty dang long, it was like the same two Jedi in that film, and they come across Luke. They're hiding on Endor still, and then Luke goes back to he was going through an old bunker on Endor, and he came across the two of them. They kind of talked, whatever. They explain that there's this crazy radical group of raiders that's, like, more radical than the Empire. Like, they're so, like, it was basically like a group of it's like a hate group that wanted the whole galaxy to be totalitarian human beings, and that was like they would kill anything in their way. So this is like a totally different people, and they'd wear all this cool armor, and they had, like, these, like, really sophisticated blasters that they themselves melded together because they wanted to show, hey, we're more sophisticated than these petty little Ewoks with their tribal bow and arrows. They really wanted to be like that, and then basically I remember I had, I'm not going to give the whole plot away, but I had this huge fight on Endor, which they didn't originate from Endor. They came to Endor to wipe out all the Ewoks. That's really, like, kind of what the deal was. They weren't trying to build anything. It wasn't like, what happened in Jedi, which is they were constructing the Death Star's, shield. Like, and no, they just were there for the purpose of wiping out all the indigenous beings of Endor, and then creating a side, thing there. Just not really creating a base, but just holding that territory. And it was more of like a message to the galaxy of, look what we did here, we're coming for you next. This whole thing. So basically, from there, at the end of the film, there's going to be this huge battle that was like something you have not seen before in Star Wars. It was huge. Like, Battlefront 1, Endor fight times 100. There was, like, these raiders, they took all the old Imperial equipment, kind of like what they did in, like, those weird raiders in Mando, the ones that look like that guy who looks like a pug, how they modified that AT-ST. It was like that, but they were taking AT-ATs, and they scrapped together all these different new vehicles too that they were gonna zip around on, and it was like the Ewoks, the two Jedi, and Luke. Obviously, Luke's the master, so I'm giving him more. Against these raiders, and then they called in basically other radicals. So I don't know how many of you guys have seen the Batman, but like the Riddler, hyped up all his crazy, like, incel anarchist followers. It was basically like that, and they just got other nutcases from the galaxy to help them fight Luke and the Ewoks. And there was just this huge fight. And then there was going to be not a raider, it was going to be a different character. One of the, what's it called? Radicals who show up, alongside the raiders was going to be a force sensitive who indulged himself in the dark side. He's not a Sith. And this is where the Star Wars knowledge comes in. Being a Sith, you have to be part of that kind of line. You have to have you have to have had a master and whatever. He just like was a Force user who radically studied and chose the dark side and just really tried to embody that. So he's not super powerful. Luke could take him out like that, because he's Luke in this point in time. But basically, Luke gets separated from them. Luke's fighting the main, what's it called? Villain of the radicals, and helping the Ewoks out over there. But then the two Jedi who are, basically, I guess the Ahsoka show referred to them as Bakken Jedi, which I actually like that term. Basically, Jedi who learned from books and were, what's that even? I don't know. But, like, basically, these two Jedi, the Master was a young Force sensitive during Order 66. He never was properly trained with the Jedi. He was with the Jedi for a couple days. No, it was, a few days, like 3 to 4 days. And originally the Jedi was going to take him. The Jedi died due to Order 66, and the kid was so excited with all these thoughts and obviously sad over the death of his, Jedi friend, that he just went all over the galaxy trying to read on how to really harness his power and became this decently powerful light side Force user who, then he dug up a lightsaber and he himself kind of manufactured his own crystal. I think they were called, what were they called? The artificial crystals in Legends. He did that, and he kind of constructed his own saber. And then he came across another Force-sensitive girl and took him under her wing. Took her under his wing, and obviously he trained her, and she's really weak because he's already like, he's okay, but like, you can't, you need a real master, like to really be good. But she was not very powerful. So then they fight the dark side user, and it's this really brutal fight because they are all inexperienced. And I thought that was a very interesting concept. None of those guys have any experience whatsoever, like real experience in their arts. So it's like all of their weird kind of self-developed strategies and whatever are just clashing, and it's super sloppy and whatever. And the Jedi Master is very conservative when it comes to Jedi teachings, and the Padawan very loosey-goosey, does things that the Jedi wouldn't normally approve of, and it's not like in an Anakin way. It's worse, I'd say, like, she literally, like, at one point tried to use Force lightning against a group of raiders. Her fingers, like, obviously nothing happened because she wasn't super powerful there, but she, like, wanted to use Sith powers a lot, and then her master kind of gets knocked aside, and then she just goes insane, and, like, absolutely beats the living crap out of this not Sith Lord, this dark side user, like, just goes ham. And her eyes, like, turn yellow. Like, it's this crazy thing. It's like a burst of force, of dark side, just in her. Um, it's so intense. Like, it's like the devil, like, just kind of entered her soul. And she starts to overpower the Sith, and her master pulls her back and knocks her out, because he's like, dude, when she's done with him, she will just be full Sith. So you're like, no. And he gets back up, he fights, then Luke finally comes back and obviously does a pretty good damage on the Sith. The Jedi Master, Bakken Jedi Master gets very hurt. He does not beat the Sith Lord. Luke really hurt, like, beats the crap out of the Sith, the dark side user. Doesn't kill him though. He shuts his saber off and basically leaves him there. But then the Jedi Master and Luke have to figure out what the heck happened to her, and it's like this whole thing. And that would have led to, I think, I could have wrapped it up in one, but I envisioned it as like a trilogy about these two Bakken Jedi, these inexperienced Jedi, and I kind of like based that idea, kind of came from me and my friends, we never had a Jedi Master or anything. Like, we figured everything out ourselves, when it came to fighting with the lightsaber, or just being knowledgeable about Star Wars. It all just kind of came from us. And it never came from anyone else. My parents were not big Star Wars fans at all. My older cousin on my dad's side, he was a huge Star Wars fan. He got me into it, and he did give me knowledge for a little bit, but like then after a while, I just think I really overpowered him in terms of knowledge about Star Wars. And and then I was kind of solo, and even then, like, I'd only really learned from him when he was in town, so it was like this whole thing. I never really had a master. Some people who grew up with Star Wars did. Most people did, but me and my friends, we didn't. It was just like us figuring things out. And I was like, that's a great concept that I'm going to use here, and yeah, it was cool. And, there's things with the, Padawan getting the yellow eyes. I don't know if she would have gotten them that early necessarily. But it was more of just like kind of a interpretation of her just really like just kind of going full dark side for that moment, just like a burst, like what Anakin did in episode 2, but way worse, way more intense. Because at least Anakin had that kind of Jedi background to conflict him a little bit, but she just was like, I don't care anymore. She just plunged into that, So I don't really know what would happen at that point. Because it certainly brought her power level up for a little bit till her master knocks her out. But I think maybe she would have gotten eyes. I mean, that's one thing I'm not totally sure, was the Sith eyes, and I obviously would have figured that out if that concept was realistic for me to actually make. But yeah. And then, there would have been kind of a wrap up, and they would have obviously had to talk to her about her ridiculous behavior. And Luke would get a really interesting, what would it be, like, message from Leia that there's something going on, and a certain planet, and that he needs to go check that out. Which is, he's like, shit. How is Darth Maul alive? What the fuck? So like, there's this whole thing, because basically in my timeline, it's George Lucas timeline, so Maul never dies in Rebels or anything. And then Luke has to leave those two to go deal with that. And then they're left alone, and the second film really would have been about those two really having to figure things out and be like, why did you do this? Apprentice, why'd you go that far down into the dark side, whatever. And obviously there would have been a new villain and whatever. And the Raiders would have still been kind of present too. Because they're mad that their leader got killed. So now they're going after the weaklings. They're too scared of Luke. They're like, they won't even bother with Luke. That's the funny thing, is I wrote a scene in there that was like, they heard his saber ignite and they look at each other and they just book it the other way. Like, just, they run, and then Luke just stands there and he just shuts his saber off. It's the funniest thing, dude. But I'm like, that's what would happen, dude. This guy walked into the Death Star with Vader and the Emperor, walked out without any of them, and it's like, without either of them. So people were, every person who opposed him was pretty much just terrified of him. But yeah, so I don't know. It's just it's a cool little concept. Then obviously I would have done a different trilogy with about Darth Maul, Darth Talon, whatever. But George wrote that trilogy, so out of respect, I was like, then that would have, once Luke went off, like, that would have been George's trilogy taking place, so, and then obviously I have ideas on what I think would have happened there, but, I hope at some point we can see those scripts that George wrote. That would be really cool. Yeah, that shows kind of the process, at least, of what making a Star Wars project is like, a little bit, just off a scene. That's one scene from my movie at the very end that you just heard. So, and a very general premise too. We go to different planets and whatever. Through different characters, but yeah, it was a really cool bit, and I really wish I could have done it, fully. But that's not realistic for someone with my budget. It's just not. Theory's fan film's like $1 million or something, and I'd need that and probably more to make mine, because it's live action. So yeah, it was really cool. But that's just one project that I've kind of come up with. Yeah, it was great. And then my actual one that I made, if you've seen it, could probably figure things out, because I do have the two inexperienced Jedi, except I made the Master a little more experienced because we didn't have Luke, so I wanted there to be kind of some more balance there. The Sith, I wanted to explore more. Things happened in production. My location we were gonna go to Joshua Tree to shoot the fight with these huge like mountain ranges in the background. They would have like tossed stones at each other. It would have been this whole like insane thing. It poured rain when we were driving there. Had to cancel the shoot. So you found like this weird little area to shoot the fight. Yeah, just due to time, I had to cut a lot of the script out. Like, it was a mess. But the fact that any of it got done, that 0.5% of it got done, is pretty insane, to be honest with you. That's pretty good. But yeah, like the only thing left that's reminiscent of my original story is the 2 Bakken Jedi and the Dark Side user. That's it. That literally, that is the only thing left that would be reminiscent of my original tale. But yeah, that's developing a Star Wars project. You don't just pile together a bunch of existing characters in one fight. It's like, no. Use them if it makes sense, but don't just bring them in for the hell of it. Like, oh, right here. No, bro. No. Now, Disney Star Wars, they don't know how to make their own characters that are really interesting. So that's like different. They should just use them. Then not really, because they don't know how. So it's so complicated. They just don't know how to make Star Wars at all. And if George made new projects and whatever, you wouldn't have a bunch of legacy characters piled together either. But yeah, he would have made a bunch of new characters that would have been lovable, and then maybe had one or two scenes with some old characters and whatever. But George never liked to tread on past ideas. He always wanted to make new ideas with everything he did. So I keep that in mind for my Star Wars projects. But yeah, that's really it. So thank you guys for watching. Between Knights of the Old Republic and how to make Star Wars. Hope this is an interesting video. So I will see you guys in the next one. Till then, may the Force be with you always.